If you've experienced something unbelievably weird and unexplainable that left you feeling isolated and afraid, the Paranormal PTSD Recovery Podcast is for you. Each week, we go from haunting to healing by focusing on one of our three core focal points: personal stories, healing tips, and understanding the unknown. We help you to know that you're not crazy, you're not alone, and you can heal. Now here's your hostess, Laura Giles. Happy full moon in Aries. It's a super moon, meaning it's extra juicy. The full moons are blow it up energy, and it's the perfect time to make the announcement that the Paranormal PTSD Recovery Podcast is morphing into something else. Yep, that's right. So rebrand is coming up, and I'll explain all that in today's podcast and invite you to come along for the next phase. So when I started the Paranormal PTSD Recovery Podcast 6 months ago, it really was in response to the escalation in clients with paranormal PTSD who had no one to talk to and nowhere to go. They felt like outcasts and weirdos, and I really wanted to validate their experience, show them that they're not alone, and figure out what's going on and find a path to healing. Let me tell you, it's been absolutely amazing, the ride we've had, and I don't know when I've had such a huge amount of personal and spiritual growth. I've met so many wonderful people, but the heart of it all has been absolutely the private conversations and exploring what's happened in the private group. It's been a no holds barred, loving, heartfelt conversation about our experiences and beliefs. And we have challenged each other and shown up to have experiences to validate what's real. And through that, I had an amazing breakthrough. I am a holistic healer, and I believe in drilling down to the root cause. Anything else is a band aid. And it might feel better for a while, but unless you get that root out, the pain will come back. And I thought that trauma was a thing that stood in the way of having a happy, healthy, connected, meaningful life. Trauma makes the brain see danger when there isn't any. It makes people suspicious and guarded. It makes us self sabotage. Trauma blocks love, and love heals trauma. And I thought it was that simple. But after working from this framework for the last 6 months, what I'm finding is that if the person doesn't have a connection to love, the fear based personality will just invent another coping strategy or mask to hide behind. And if we're creating from the mind instead of the heart, our creations aren't authentic. So let me show you what I mean. Imagine that we're all living in a theater. We're born backstage without a mask and without a role. We're just free and open and natural. We're the perfect balance of the yin and the yang, human and spirit, and then something happens that overwhelms our ability to cope. We don't have the resources to deal with these limited people in this limited reality. Our spirit just doesn't know how to handle the limitations of living in a physical world, and the human part takes over. It creates a mask to survive. Now we're little and immature, so we might create a cute mask that says, if you see how cute I am, you'll have to love me and not hurt or abandon me. Or we might create a victim mask that says, look what you've done to me. I'm so helpless. Won't you rescue me? Or maybe we create an angry mask that says, if I yell loud enough, you'll give me what I want. Or maybe it's the independent mask that says, I don't need you. You can't hurt me. Just leave me alone. And to be honest, over time, you probably create all of these masks and more to survive by the time we're just 8 or so. So we think that the only one that we use the most is the most socially acceptable, and that one's our true face, but it's still just a mask. When something happens and we say, I just want things to go back to normal, what we mean is that we want it to go back to where we can use our most familiar mask because that's our comfort zone. Even when we're erasing trauma triggers, we don't get back to our true face unless and until we can access the energy of the heart. So let me tell you a story to show you what I mean. So I'm working with this gal. Let's call her Sally. She's got lots of trauma. We're doing great work. She's on fire. And Sally's going from having panic attacks every day and can't leave the house, to feeling great. She's optimistic. She's going out and taking care of errands with no anxiety. She's spending time socially with no anxiety, and then she crashes. What happened? We were removing all these trauma triggers, so why didn't she just bounce back and stay there? She was on her way. And then there's another woman, I'll call her Nadia. And Nadia has been perpetually depressed for as long as she can remember. She does a lot of self help classes, does yoga, attends spiritual retreats, and has done things like attending an ayahuasca retreat. And she gets this breakthrough and feels amazing for a while, and then it all comes back. Only, you know, it's just a matter of time before that depression creeps back in because lots of things work for a while and then they don't. So, what's going on? Well, it goes back to trauma blocks love, love heals trauma. The trauma work got the barrier out of the way, but we didn't connect to the love. Without that piece, the old mask or a new one pops up in its place. It's like the process of healing stopped, so there was nothing left to do but create a new mask and deal with the feeling of being incomplete. And that is where the new podcast is going. Trauma is still a huge issue, it's just not the root cause. And the paranormal piece is still very important because we do live in a multidimensional world and we have to figure out the rules of the game so we can navigate it well. But once we're coming from a space of love, well, the whole dynamic just changes. A lot of people are scared to death to think that we're not the apex predator anymore. There's lots of creatures that can have their way with us. Once we connect with source energy, which is what love is, that's a game changer. We suddenly have a power that we didn't have before. If you're paying attention to all the nasty things happening in the world, well, love can change that too. And I believe that people came from all faiths, came together to neutralize Hurricane Milton, and that's why when it hit land, it disintegrated. I believe that that was nothing more than focused prayer and energy. People saw what happened to North Carolina. They saw the predictions for a Cat 6 hurricane, and the love poured out. I believe it was a miracle. And I think we need that miracle to continue so that we can safeguard our children's future, the stability of our country, and the future of humanity. I believe we all have the power to co create by our reality by connecting with love and being conscious about what we're creating. I have had a lot of guests on the show to talk about their paranormal experiences and paranormal studies. And information's great, but when it makes you afraid, you create from this space of fear. I think this is why we're seeing so many more creatures and cryptids. I believe we're conjuring them through our thoughts. So let's conjure love and light instead. But let's do it from a space of source energy. You see, we live in this complementary dualistic universe, and that means every front has a back, every day has a night. We know reality through comparisons. So the more peaks we create, the more strife we also create because they go hand in hand. That's the nature of duality. However, when we create from source energy, this is not true anymore. If you look at the coin, there is a front and a back, but there's also this edge. And this edge is both front and back. It's neither but both. And this is the place where it's possible to have pure love without pain or sadness, hate or indifference. The Enigma captures this. In the song Return to Innocence, it says, "Don't be afraid to be weak. Don't be too proud to be strong. Just look into your heart, my friend. That will be the return to yourself, the return to innocence." It is a return to innocence. It's the marriage of heaven and earth within you. You're both human and spirit with access to emotions and desires, but are guided by the pure essence that doesn't dominate, manipulate, or harm others to get its needs met. It doesn't feel threatened because someone has something or is beautiful. It feels the interconnectedness of all things. From that space, it's easy to let go of the masks and appreciate the beauty, fragility, and wonder of being a human in a flawed world. Only from that space do we have access to the love that is truly heals trauma from the core. So it's both. The trauma still needs to heal so we can open that door to love. Once we're there, the love can heal our wounds and those of others because it's true that traumatized people create more traumatized people, and that love that heals you allows you to heal others. I don't mean as a job or a technique, but as a byproduct of how we all move in the world. And that's what the new podcast is about. So the new podcast is called Fantasia. If you know the book or the movie, The Neverending Story, you'll get it right away. It's a fantasy story about the disappearance of a land called Fantastica in the book and Fantasia in the movie. As the story opens, we see a young boy whose mother has recently died. His father's cold and wants him to just grow up. He's being bullied by kids at school and he ducks into a bookshop when the boys chase him. The shopkeeper tempts him to take the never ending story, and instead of going to class, he takes the book to the school attic to read it. And he becomes really engrossed in the story of a land that is being devoured by the nothing. Everything is just disintegrating because people have stopped believing in fantasy. They don't dream anymore. So it all fades to nothing. And in the end, Fantasia dies. But the boy realizes that he can bring it all back through his thoughts. So he dreams it all back into being and then some. And that's what this vision is. When we all have happy, healthy, connected dreams, we can create a world of happy, healthy things instead of being bogged down by people defecating in the airports, being attacked by strangers, seeing people kidnapping and eating pets, being stalked in the national parks, or having our children disappear into sex trafficking, being threatened by nuclear war, and being held hostage by monster storms. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that horrible things are happening, but we aren't helpless. We are more powerful than we know. We're living in Fantasia, and as long as we dream trauma dreams and fear dreams, our reality will be one of threat and danger. So let's try something new. Instead of looking for enemies, let's heal our hearts, make friends with our creation, and have some fun. With all the threats of World War III, the poles shift. We might as well party like it's 1999. And if it really comes to that, we'll go out happy. And if it doesn't, well, who knows what lovely things we can create. I think we just may surprise ourselves. So here is what you do. I'm planning the relaunch on November 1st, the new moon in Scorpio. In the meantime, you can follow the YouTube channel at youtube.com/at myfantasia. There's also a new podcast called Fantasia, or check out the community at myfantasia.podia.com. All these links are in the show notes, so you don't have to write anything down. Everything's very much in the works, but you can be an early adopter. You can influence the direction that we take when the group is small because you don't get lost in the crowd and your voice is easily heard. And the more you contribute, the better it is for everyone. The new community is free, but guess what? There's also an invitation only community where the private conversations and gatherings happen. And frankly, it's the gatherings where all the growth happens. And the only way to get an invite is to participate in the main group. If you let us know that you're interested, ready to participate, and have something to share with the world, you just get an invite. So I love this way of learning because it's natural. In the natural world, there are teachers who are teachers because they have specialty knowledge, and there are teachers who are teachers because we're social creatures and we just learn from each other. Humans are mirrors for each other. And as long as we're paying attention, we can grow. And since we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, having a select group just makes that time more valuable and enriching. So come and be a part of that, the YouTube group, the new podcast. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I really appreciate you being here and coming along for the ride. So, ciao, guys.